Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me for this Just a Thought. Now, if you have been watching these regularly, you'll know that these are not detailed kind of Bible studies. This is not preaching a sermon or whatever. It's just something that I had on my heart to do in addition to bringing teaching on Sundays. And the inspiration for this comes in numerous different ways. Sometimes it's something that's going on in the world. Sometimes it's just something a bit random. Other times it's a particular Bible verse or topic that has caught my attention. It's just me sharing my thoughts with you. And the inspiration for today's comes due to the fact that the Euros commences today. And I'm sure for some of you that will be very long awaited. You'd be super excited about that. You'll have the bunting up, bunting, maybe not football fans, but you'll have the red and white flags out. You'll be getting excited about that. And I'm sure for some of you, perhaps less than impressed, but it is on and it is starting today. Now for me, those of you that know me know that I'm not a huge football fan really. I used to be when I was a child. I was really followed league football. I was really into it. I've never been any good at it, but I enjoyed watching it and following it. As the years have gone by, my enthusiasm for it has waned a little bit, but I do still enjoy the international game. I do still enjoy the big tournaments. I only usually watch the England games, maybe the final, depending on who's playing. But this year I will certainly be watching England, looking forward to that first game on Sunday. And it is on. And this is where my inspiration comes for today's Just a Thought. Now, I have been incredibly impressed over the last few years by the England manager, Gareth Southgate. Watching the World Cup in 2018, there were moments when I was thinking, is this really England? Because we did so well in that tournament. And I think a lot of it was down to Southgate and the way that he managed the team. Now, I'm sure that you will remember that classic penalty shootout that we had against Colombia in the second round, and we actually won it, unless I was dreaming. I may well have been dreaming at that point. But it was that image, I'm sure you remember it, of Southgate going over and consoling the Colombian player who missed the penalty. And the thing was that Southgate knew what that felt like, didn't he? You remember the Euros in 1996 where Southgate missed the penalty, it took us out of the tournament. So when he went over and encouraged that player from the opposition, he knew what he was feeling like. He'd stood in those shoes, or rather in those boots, before. Well, just hold that thought for a minute. Now, as I say, I'm not a huge fan of the domestic game. I couldn't probably name very many of the squad in the England squad for this year, but of course one name that's very familiar to me, and it will be to you as well, is Marcus Rashford. And of course he's a great player for Man U and for England, but what really strikes me about him, as I'm sure it does with you, is the way that he uses his platform for good. The way that he has campaigned for child poverty and homelessness over this year, and not just kind of putting out a few tweets or whatever, but constant lobbying and campaigning, writing to the government and all of these things. It's been really impressive, and we're so impressed with people like that when we see them doing these things. But what strikes me today is, and I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but Marcus Rashford comes from very humble beginnings. He was brought up by a single mother. He's one of 5 siblings, and his mother, her name is Melanie Maynard, worked multiple jobs in order to survive and keep the family going. At times she would go without meals so that the children would be provided for. You see, Marcus Rashford, he stood in the shoes of children and families who are struggling to survive, who are struggling on very, very little. So he knows what it feels like. Well, let me just sort of share a few thoughts kind of off the back of that. And one is that poverty in this country is a massive, massive problem. And I want to tell you that it's our problem, because it is an absolute anathema in the kingdom of God that people live in poverty. It's not God's heart or will. You just look throughout the Bible where there is that constant encouragement to take care of the poor in both Old and New Testaments. What did the early church ensure that they did right from the start? They cared for the poor. We read in Acts that there were no needy people among them. I mean, can you imagine that? No needy people among them. People sold what they had in order to meet the needs of others. And we had this verse a few weeks ago during our CAP ministry, and this spoke to me really powerfully. It was Galatians 2:10. Paul was speaking about his ministry and the directive that he was given from the leaders of the early church, James, Peter and John. And it says that all they asked was that we kept on helping the poor. And I am so grateful and I'm so proud that we are able to support and be involved in the work of CAP, Christians Against Poverty in Maidstone. I'm so grateful to Donna and for her heart to serve in this way, because there are women in our town like Melanie Maynard. There are kids like Marcus Rashford, how they used to live, barely surviving. But we have that privilege of being able to serve them through CAP. We can be the answer to the grave needs that they have, and so much more than that. We can give or help them find what they ultimately need more than anything, which is to know that there is a God who loves them. A God who knows what Melanie Maynard went through, because he sacrificed everything for the sake of those he longed to be his children. He gave his one and only son so that people might live, that they might know freedom, that they might know salvation, that they might be able to have a relationship with him. I just want to urge you, folks in Connect Church that are watching, to get involved with the work of CAP, to pray, to give, to support, and really importantly in my eyes, to encourage as well. Anyone in ministry of any kind who works in parachurch organisations or who works in church leadership or anything like that at all will tell you how important it is to know that people have your back, that people appreciate what you're doing. That's huge. So, don't fall into a trap of thinking that CAP is just some kind of sideline to what we do. It's front line to what we do. So, you know what, church, you need to be contacting Donna. You need to be encouraging her. You need to be getting alongside her and getting behind her in what God has given her to do, in what God has given us as a church to do. I want to encourage you to do that today, and make sure that you encourage her, bother her, irritate her by the amount of messages that she gets. Just saying that you have got her back, that you are supporting her, that you appreciate what she is doing. So I just want to really encourage you to do that. She will be so much more effective in what she does with your help and your support, your prayers and your encouraging words. My second thought is that these two examples of Southgate and Rashford, that I said that they understand what it is. They've stood in the shoes. Well, Jesus knows what it's like to suffer and to struggle. He's not some aloof deity, distant up in the sky. He became one of us. He had the poorest and most humble of beginnings. I don't know if any of you can relate to this today. Jesus faced constantly demands to prove who he was. He was abandoned, he was betrayed, he was rejected, he was abused, he was the victim of grave injustice. Whatever you're going through, he understands, he gets it. And we might say, well, Jesus, how could Jesus understand? How could he know what it's like to fail? He was perfect. He was sinless. But, we read in his word that he was up close and personal. He got as up close and personal as you possibly could with those who got it wrong, who failed so royally. And then we have this in this verse in Hebrews 4:15. It says, we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathise with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, and yet did not sin. Tempted in every way. So he gets it. And he gets you. He has stood in your shoes. So come to him. Allow him to meet you where you're at, in your brokenness, in your disappointment. Allow him to encourage you and help you. And of course, he won't force himself upon you. I feel with this, message today that someone needs to respond, and your response may be, I need to know this. I don't know Jesus. I need to know him in my life. And if that's you and you feel that God is speaking to you, then please do get in touch with me personally. And I'd just really love to talk to you. And, I don't have all the answers to all the questions, but can help you with those thoughts. And, you may be a follower of Jesus, part of our church or not, who may be struggling with disappointments, who may be just a bit off track, and sometimes, that you need to take that step back to Jesus, but it's difficult to do that on your own. Well, I just do want to encourage you to please get in touch with me, and I will do what I can to help you. And finally, I want to say this, and this may offend someone who's watching, and it's absolutely fine. If you want to talk about that, I'm really happy to talk about that. But Southgate utterly endorses and supports his players as they use their platform, and we've noticed that particularly lately, to take a stand, or rather to take a knee. This is kind of tied up with particularly Black Lives Matter last year with racism, and lots of people have different views about this. I know about Black Lives Matter, about the significance of taking the knee. But what strikes me, however you feel about that, is that these are people who are using the platform that they have been given for something that they believe in. And actually that many of them in that team have been a victim of. It really goes deep for some of these guys. And their teammates who haven't been victims of racism are prepared to join them in that, despite the reaction that they get from some of the fans. Because of course we've seen it, haven't we? Just recently, this last week or so, of people booing them when they've been doing that. But they've said that they're going to carry on doing it all through the tournament, even if they are booed. And personally, I find that really inspiring and actually quite humbling as a Christian. Because as Christians, how willing are we to use our platforms to stand up or take a knee for what we believe in? And I want to encourage you to use the platform, use the influence that you have to point to Jesus, to nail your colours to the mast. And if some boos come, then let them come. But you stick with it. And I want to say to those who do boo, if any of you are watching, and God bless you if you are, they're going to take the knee anyway. So why bother, really? Do you really think that booing will help them get their heads in the game any better? Or do you think maybe that could be a bit of a distraction to them? Because I'm guessing you probably want them to do really, really well, as we all do. I just encourage you, if that's you and if that's the view that you hold, to find other ways to make your point, if it is that much of a problem with you. So there you go. That is my Euro It's Euro 2020, isn't it? Even though it's 2021. That's my kind of football themed. It's about as football themed as you're going to get from me. But I hope you found that interesting. I hope there was something helpful there. I hope there was something that spoke to you in some way and just made you think, which is really kind of what this is for, what this is all about. So thank you for sticking with me. That was a bit longer than I thought it was going to be. But as I say, if you want to respond to any of this, please do get in touch with me. I'll always be really grateful to hear from you. Always be, interested to listen to your views on these things. So there you go. God bless you. If you're joining us at the centre or want to on Sunday, then please make sure that you register. If you've got any questions about that at all, then please do get in touch. We'll be broadcasting online in the meantime, and we'll be having some information soon about taking on our physical gatherings to the next level. But there we go. God bless you. Enjoy the football. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll catch up with you really soon. Take care.